All right, so currently I'm an animator at Compulsion Games. Helped finish off We Happy Few and currently working on DLCs for that title. But since I'm sitting here, my background before I became an animator, I'm a senior junior. I had a 20-year career in the military, all the while like part-time, and I went basically through school, like supporting myself going through school, and 2 tours to Afghanistan, worked a bunch of other different jobs, and then finally later in life decided I'd give animation one last try. Went back to school when I was 34, and then when I graduated, wound up at Compulsion, and been loving it ever since. I started animating in 2003. I went to school at Concordia and did a baccalaureate at the Melt Hoppenheim School of Cinema. And back then there was no real 3D taught at the school. I think we got one semester, 1 hour a week in 3D Max, and with a guy who really didn't want to be there. So I pretty much learned all the basics of animation the old style way, like paper and a light box and a Acme peg paper. So a lot of long nights drawing and doing test sheets and all that good stuff. And then even filming it. Like one of my final films is on film. So under a camera, and then changing all the papers out, click, change the paper out, click, doing it just like Disney. I've been working at Compulsion for just over a year now, a year and 3 months. So me and another guy, Jules, were brought in to help finish the game when it was supposed to be shipping in April this year. But we got kept on and played a larger role in it, and then got hired on full time, which is like super cool because it's really a great place to work. A great team, and I have fun every day when I come to work. So I joined the Army in 1998 on a part-time basis. So in Canada, you can work on weekends, work between like September and May, let's say, and then you can work all summer for the Army on a full-time job. And so it's like geared towards students. So you do it part-time while you're doing your studies. And so I joined in 1998, and as I was going through school, and I have a long history with school. I started off in pure and applied science first, failed out of that, and then got back in and did my first college degree in fine arts. And then once I did my college fine arts, then I went to Concordia, did 4 years at Concordia Animation. All the while working weekends, supporting myself, paying rent for food and all the rest of it while working with the Army. And then in 2007, I graduated from Concordia and then went that summer to go and teach for the military at a base in Quebec. And then at the end of that summer, I had a choice to make. The Army offered me either go on a tour to Afghanistan, which is something I'd wanted to do for a while before then, or come back to Montreal and try and find a job as an animator. And I chose to go to Afghanistan. So I deployed in 2009, came back in 2009, went to Kandahar, had a very interesting summer there, and then came back in October 2009. And then by the time I wanted to start finding a job in the industry again, I found out that basically, old school animation had pretty much disappeared, and maybe a few places were still doing like Toon Boom, but usually it was people with experience that they took on. Other than that, it was all 3D, and I didn't really know 3D. So tried to teach myself 3D using 3D Max, and try to apply all the stuff that I'd learned at Concordia to 3D Max, and it did not work out very well. I made a demo reel, it sucked. Very honestly, it was not good, and I don't blame people for not giving me a job. So after a while, I kind of quit trying to look for a job, and then got the opportunity to go on a second tour to Afghanistan, which I took in 2012. I came home in 2013 from that. Took another little job with the Army. That didn't work out either. And then I was at like 34, I was like, okay, well, what do I do? And so I decided to give animation another try. And that's when I went back to Dawson College, their 3D animation program. Spent 3 years there, learned a lot, made I think, a pretty good demo reel, final film, and like felt confident enough to actually get a job in it. And a couple of weeks after I graduated, I got the job at Compulsion, and have been having fun ever since. I've always wanted to do animation as a job, just the industry itself, whether it's VFX or gaming, has always super fascinated me. I distinctly remember one of the first memories I have of seeing VFX on screen was Independence Day with Will Smith. And it was just wow, cool, how the hell did they do that? I would really like to do that. And I've been a lifelong gamer too. I started playing Doom, the original Doom on diskettes. I was there when Half-Life came out, and I was just blown away by Half-Life, BioShock. All the big titles are all part of my pedigree of gaming, and it was just I just always wanted to do something like that and be in that industry. I thought it would be the funnest thing ever, and I just kind of never gave up on that dream. And so yeah, that's why at 34 I was hey, maybe we should give this another try. Because one of the things about animating for me is it's one of the rare things in my life where I can put my headphones on, put some music on, and then time just melts away. It's I can be focused on it for hours, and then I'll look up and be oh wow, it was 3 hours, it just went away. And it's really rare that there's things that interest me that much in life where it's just oh wow, okay, well 3 hours went away. And yeah, and then the payoff, the little animation that I did do at Concordia, just getting that reaction from people, and just from a few drawings or whatever, a smile, a laugh, whatever, it's a huge payoff. It's cool, they reacted to something I made, So I've always wanted to be part of that. So it's been fascinating. School kind of teaches you a certain skill set and everything, but there's just so much more to learn out there. I'm a lifelong learner. I always like learning stuff, and feeling competent. But yeah, it's just it's crazy how much there is to learn, how much there is to do. It's one of those places where you can study for years and still not know everything. So, and especially working at Compulsion, I've been part of a lot of teams in my life with my experience with the military and other workplaces. So team dynamics and organizational structure and the way things work. They have a great team dynamic, great structure, and they're working on an original title, which is another thing that I really like, is that it's not just another cookie cutter whatever. I get to be part of crafting a unique experience, and because we're such a small team, I get to leave a part of myself in that, which is also really appealing. I'm not part of a 300-person team. That's I'm part of the sausage machine, factory, if you will. I can, if I play We Happy Few, I can see those moments that I helped create, cutscenes and animations and stuff, and know that, that's part of me, and probably nobody else would have done it that way, with that slant. So that's a really cool feeling for me. So, one of the cool things about my time in the military is that you don't really do anything alone in the military, and especially with my time overseas, I very much learned that without, the people who support you, bringing you food, water, medicine, and all those things, you can't do your job there. So seeing the whole team working as one, and everyone kind of like working towards the same goal. You know, it's rare that you find that anywhere else, and so, you know, one of the things that I appreciate from my career in the military is like seeing a good team and being part of a good team. You know, it's a good feeling when you know that everyone around you is working really hard towards, you know, the same goal and like putting forward their best effort for that, you know. And so it's cool to look around and be like, oh wow, all these people are here and they're just as passionate about me and they're giving just as much energy as I am to this, you know. So like that atmosphere is like really encouraging. It's like, it's fun to come into work every day. Yeah, so I was like about twice as old as most of the people in my class. So it was interesting. You know, given my background and kind of like the hardships that I've gone through and that I got used to, and kind of being a little older and knowing how to like manage my time and concentrate on things, it was interesting to like be surrounded by, you know, some people who didn't have those skills, you know, and so it was kind of a culture shock for me to go back, you know, and like I don't think I'm ancient, but I certainly didn't feel like I was 100% part of, you know, that generation. And there's a lot of things that they would talk about or whatever that was just like, like I have no idea what that is. So like the first 2 years, you know, I was just another student, you know, kind of like still learning. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I knew like more about what we were learning than them. You know, I certainly know a little more about life than they do, but apart from that, you know, who am I to be there and critique them and whatever. The final year though, the school puts on a vernissage for all of the films. And so I took it upon myself to become the president of the vernissage committee and like organize it. And you know, from the stories I heard from previous people who organized it, it was a bit chaotic. And so I kind of came in there and organized it like properly, so that it wasn't all like a last minute everything, and some of the students were penalized like grade-wise because they couldn't finish their schoolwork and do that at the same time. And I thought that was, you know, shameful, that, you know, that they would have to sacrifice their career opportunities to be able to put on the show for the rest of the class. So I organized it so that it would be the whole third year and that everyone participated and everyone put in their time and effort, but that it was, you know, spread out over the whole year instead of like a very intense 3 weeks at the end for a select few, which was the case in previous years. So on the organizational side, I definitely, you know, kind of took some of those skills, management skills, organization skills, personnel management skills that I, you know, acquired through the military, and definitely applied them through that. Right. Also like bookkeeping, communication, written communication, making sure that people were talking to each other, and all that good stuff, which, you know, I think some of them benefited from. Last year when I went back to the vernissage, you know, some people came up to me and they were like, oh, hey, yeah, you know, it's like for the first time in my life, like I was writing things down and planning stuff, you know, and I'm kind of doing that now again, you know, with my normal job. It's like, oh, cool, so you learned something. So that was nice. I didn't sleep much and I didn't see my friends a lot. Yeah, so my weekends were working for the military to raise money for food and, you know, life. And then during the week, I would maybe get 2-3 hours a night, depending on the week. And it was just like a lot of coffee and like willpower to kind of like get through it and just make it through, which, you know, is something that I'm comfortable with. Not everyone can do that, but yeah, I mean, it just needed to get done. So don't have a choice. Just go. When we were crunching, so The way I would kind of describe it is that when I was at school and I was pulling all-nighters, especially like in your 30s, pulling all-nighters is not like the easiest thing. It used to be easier in my 20s. In your 30s, it gets a little harder. I was on a pretty crazy schedule, and so then even when we were crunching to finish up We Happy Few, it wasn't nearly as bad. Like I left the studio a couple of times at like 1 or 2 in the morning. But I mean, it was nothing as sustained over like months that I put myself through really when I was at school. I mean, you gotta eat, So when I was in school, like I had to do both things to A, pass, and B, eat. Whereas a Compulsion, like, yeah, we have to ship the game, but the schedule is not as crazy, at least not for the animation department. Unreal. So much Unreal. So like integrating in Unreal, like what blend spaces are, like all that crazy stuff, and a ton of motion builder. My course at Dawson primarily focused on Maya, and so when I showed up and they were like, yeah, so this is motion builder. I'd taken one class at Dawson that showed us motion builder, like the basics. But nothing in depth or like concrete like that, and yeah, it was a learning curve. Just different workflows, how the program kind of works differently than Maya does. The importance of namespaces, crazy stuff like that, and then like just how to like make an animation and then get it to work in the game. And then, if we're talking about in-game, making cutscenes, from like A to Z, talking to level designers, see what they need, talking with Alex, the narrative director, and like, okay, so what is the intent here? And then kind of like grouping all that information up and then coming up with something. So like learning how to work within the team to get the results that we need, to get it done. So it's always learning. Well, the smaller team, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say that like my experience at Compulsion would be nearly the same as someone animating at UB or at EA or at Warner's or even in the VFX industry, right? I mean, they're all different animals, different styles of animation, different levels of like technical competency. Like I'm pretty sure most people in a larger team don't have to integrate, test, and make sure that everything's working in Unreal. I'm sure there's a tech anim who would take care of that for them. And like just the amount of troubleshooting that we have to go through because we're such a small team. So it's all, yes, there's the animation part of it, but it's all the little competencies that go about that so that, I'm not constantly pestering the lead being like, don't get me wrong, I did that at the beginning, but like eventually I'm sure Vince got a little tired of it and was like, eh. So, I tried to learn as much as possible as quickly as I could so that I could like troubleshoot stuff myself and get it working. I'm sure it took a few hours more than it should have, but now I get it. Now I understand how it all kind of like works and integrates and all that, so I can take care of a few things more myself, And I mean, when we were debugging before we shipped, I spent a week, actually spent like a month and a half just debugging animation stuff, And so I had to kind of figure it out because the team was on like vacation or whatever else, and the person who could have got it done in 10 minutes wasn't necessarily there. So I just kind of had to figure it out. The biggest difference that I noticed was is the rigs. In Maya, it's whatever rig came with the character or whatever you're animating. Whereas in Motion Builder, we're using the Human IK, which is like set. It's universal among all the assets that we're working with, and just being able to like how does the FK-IK blend work? How do the pins work? Which I'd never encountered with any of the other rigs that I'd worked with at school in Maya. So just like learning a new workflow, and again, troubleshooting the little quirks of Motion Builder 2014 there. You know, just like in the curve editor, if you put it on auto, like just little details like that where it's like, why is it not doing what I want it to do? You know, it looks like it's supposed to, but it's not. Why? So that was the biggest difference for me. Like the keyframing and doing the animation, that's like, meh. The biggest difference, just workflow-wise, was using a different rig. Practice. Practice and be passionate. Yeah, just like what you do. And yeah, respect yourself too. Don't kill yourself. Like I did it, but I'm used to it. But like, yeah, be passionate. Always try and learn stuff every day, whether it's on a technical level, on an animation level, or you know, just don't stagnate.
All right. That's
About it.
Thanks, Mike.
No worries.